Blog Talk Radio.
This is America First Patriot Podcast. I'm your host, Chauncey Brown. My co-host, Jared Tomasi, is in queue. He will be live with me on Wednesday. I want to thank him for joining us and also being a part of the development of the American First Patriot Podcast. Jared and I were chewing it up on social media when we came up with the idea to start putting our conversation out in public. So we're going to be here live every Wednesday, probably at 9 o'clock at night, but we'll send all the updates out before the show. And Jared and I will be going live, and we'll be chewing it up, talking about all the issues across the world, the United States. Jared's an American First Patriot. He's a veteran, and he's excited to jump on here with me and talk about all the issues we're facing and raise the level of consciousness of all Americans. I'm excited for tonight's show. A friend of mine, Jeremy Brown, who was running for Congress in 2020 in Florida, retired Master Sergeant, Special SEALs, Green Beret. He was at the January 6th protests, but he was there for security for the Trump speech. Consequently, all the guys marched down to the Capitol, and he got swooped up with many others. What they called was an insurrection, and he's been incarcerated since. But I want to remind the public that no one has ever been charged with insurrection. And the most ironic thing is that the Capitol is the people's house. How can you trespass the people's house? Okay, I saw that in an article earlier today when I was reading about he was charged with trespassing trespassing. I'm like, these government buildings, do they forget about the Constitution and it's we the people, and that they work for us? And that's the problem with today, is that these politicians think that they're kings and queens and monarchs and elites, that we should be bowing down to them, but they forget that we the people really have the control. Now, Jeremy presently is in jail right now, and we're waiting for him to call in. Of course, he has to call in from a payphone, so we're waiting for him to call in to the show. I spoke to his girlfriend earlier and said that he had all the information, but you could not contact him again. So we're waiting for him to call in, and that should be momentarily, because she said that he's able to make phone calls at night at 9:30. So while we're waiting for him to come in, for those who do not know me, my name is Chauncey. I'm a national podcast host for the Chauncey Show. And as a matter of fact, I host my conservative podcast every Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 7 Eastern Standard Time. And this Thursday, I'm going to have on founder and CEO of Black Pact, George Farrell. Has been very instrumental with helping American patriots get elected across the country, especially Black, Latino, and Asian. But they help all people. As we know, the GOP has experienced some challenges with helping people of color and women if you're not in lockstep with the GOP and they're part of the GOP elite, the rhinos. And I've seen that on my podcast many times that there's a lot of candidates, whether it's men, women, whether it's white, black, no matter what it is. If you're not in lockstep with the establishment, they're barring you, they're blocking you, they're using others to call you a Democrat plant and all kinds of names. And it is sad, but we have to weed out those rhinos. We have to weed out all those career politicians who have done nothing but become wealthy on the backs of taxpayers while oppressing the masses of people. You know. Oh, we got somebody in the studio. I hope this is Jeremy. Everybody stand by for a second. Hopefully this is Jeremy. Oh, my goodness. They just hung up. Okay, so I don't know who that was calling me. Hold on 1 second, everyone. Please stand by. Welcome back to the show. Jeremy called me to my personal cell. I apologize to get everybody on hold. We've worked out a way where he's going to be able to call in to my phone and merge the call because he's calling from jail and you have to accept these various prompts. So we just went through that. I appreciate everyone's patience. He's going to call me right back again. When he calls me back, I have to go through a few prompts, so please allow me a couple of minutes to do that, and then we're going to tie him in. Okay, so I'm waiting for him to call me back now. Okay, so give him a minute. I hope all is well with everyone. As soon as he calls back, I'm going to merge the call. I appreciate everyone's patience. This is my first time going live from a jail. So this is a good experience for me. So if we do this, okay, he's calling in now, everyone. Hold on a second. And everybody's going to hear what transpires.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from an inmate at the Pinellas County Jail. To accept this call, press 0. To refuse this call, hang up or... You are receiving a call from the Pinellas County Jail that is subject to monitoring and recording. If you are an attorney and do not wish to have your communications recorded, please disconnect from this call and visit the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office website for further instruction. Terms and complete this call, press 1 after the tone.
Thank you for using Global Tellink.
Hello?
Yes, Jeremy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we did it.
We did it, yeah.
You know, I was just talking briefly. Jeremy's been a friend of mine for a couple of years. We tease each other, a brother from another mother. I also want to say thank you so much, Jeremy, for your girlfriend, for keeping me in touch with what's going on with you. I talked to her, I texted her today, and I told her thank you so much. She's awesome. She's been in your corner 110%. But I know that people that are listening want to hear you today. So I'll let you talk about your experience from going down, being security for the Trump speech to all of a sudden everybody walking down to being arrested. So talk about what's going on, Jeremy, if you don't mind.
Well, first of all, Chauncey, I just want to let all your listeners know that this will be the shortest phone conversation that you and I have ever had, and it's only taken a myriad of individuals with guns in order to make that a historic possibility. And I'm not sure that you and I will be able to for you and I to just let me talk, because that's just not how we do it. But
Jeremy, I'm going to do my best because I know people are excited to hear about your story, to hear about what's going on. I know that, you went through a hunger strike. Is that why they transferred you from D.C. to Pinellas?
No, actually, I was never in D.C. because what they did is when they arrested me, they charged me with felonies here in the Middle District. So while they wanted to transfer me to D.C., they were never able to do so because they made the mistake of thinking that we wouldn't catch on to the ways the game's played. So we actually filed a motion to have me detained here in the Middle District of Florida because the felony charges that they cooked up were larger than the misdemeanor charges that I was arrested on. So I've been here in the Pinellas County Jail now for 138 days, being held in maximum security detention because of a handwritten sign on my door. So there you go, America. Freedom of speech.
Wow. Jeremy, let me get this straight. So you're in jail not because of January 6th protest, but because of something that happened in the county in which you live.
That's correct. So when the FBI finally showed up on September 30th with an arrest warrant executed by the Joint Terrorism Task Force for 2 counts of basically misdemeanor trespassing. Those charges, the U.S. Attorney stated they did not seek for me to be detained. It was the ATF agents that they showed up to the house with that executed a search warrant that found things to charge me with felonies with. 2 of those counts are mysterious explosive devices that nobody seems to know where they came from except the guys that found them in my RV, and oddly enough, the DNA samples that are on the items don't match anything that I have. But we won't talk about evidence because I'm not allowed to see my evidence or talk about it to anybody because it looks really bad for the FBI. But yeah,
yeah, it's not their evidence. It's not your evidence. So yeah, you can't talk about something that's not yours. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of things, and I've just for the first time on February 7th since being arrested on September 30th, did the government graciously allow me to look at some of the evidence that they have deemed not sensitive or highly sensitive to the to the building of their case. And so they have graciously allowed me to review some of the evidence, and from that evidence review, I have 32 pages worth of notes from going over photographs and documents that they have used to build this mythical case. The reality is that on December 9th, 2020, the exact same agents that arrested me on September 30th conducted a soft recruitment of me as a confidential informant to spy on American citizens, of which I turned down. Once I attended the January 6th rally as a member of a personal security detail that was a group of guys associated with the Oath Keepers that volunteered to provide security for speakers and organizers of the Stop the Steal rally. Under VIP credentials, we literally were in the closest section to the President of the United States, cleared through Secret Service vetting as well as a physical checkpoint that morning. We performed those security details that day. After that day was over, having heard all the lies and media narrative and everything, I decided to go public with the recording of that FBI recruitment meeting on March 5th. And for quite a while, I made the rounds of interviews and was as loud as I could possibly be. But, little old Jeremy, he doesn't have these big-name media contacts, and my story wasn't fitting in with the narrative. But once Darren Beatty broke his story in mid-June, from Revolver News, which basically linked a lot of the players and the narratives that were used in the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot in Michigan to January 6th, and really started to connect the dots on FBI involvement in the not the insurgency but the Fed-surgency. That's when you noticeably see on the paper trail anyway, at least the paper trail that I've been provided by the FBI, that's when they say, basically, we need to start looking into this guy. So I have documents from the FBI that claim that I'm no threat to national security, that the case should be closed early in January, but oddly, right after I start making noise again after the Darren Beatty article. That's when they start interviewing people again. And then they arrest me on a warrant that was literally applied for the day before. So September 28th, they applied for my arrest warrant. September 29th, it was signed. And on September 30th, they arrested me. So there's plenty here in these 32 pages of handwritten documents or handwritten notes that I've accrued over the last 4 days that will expose the FBI for its lies and corruption and hyperbole and conjecture, because they have a narrative and they need somebody to fit into it. And because I was embarrassing them, I guess they decided it was time to shut me up.
Well, hopefully you could mail that stuff out, and then I can contact Helene, and then I can put it up on my blog if you'd like.
Oh, well, Chauncey, you know we can't do that because, see, the D.C. court has put in place a protective order that prevents me from distributing any of my discovery, and that's the reason why I'm not allowed to see any of the footage, because I'm such a risk of dissemination and will harm the government's case. You know, the constitutionally protected right of the government to prosecute citizens. Oh, yeah, no, that doesn't exist. But they've put in place a protective order that prevents me from even seeing the evidence in my case without supervision. And so that's why I said I've only been able to review the stuff that they've granted me mercy to be able to see the little bit that they've seen, but there's much, much more. And, of course, they use the excuse that, you know, the 14 months since January 6th just hasn't been enough time for them to get their act straight, but yet they've arrested over 700 people, but they can't provide anybody with their evidence yet because they're still going through it. You know, it's a lot of work for them.
Unbelievable. You know, as I'm listening to the real story of exactly what happened to you, I'm thinking about the woman that you rendered first aid to during the protest. Can you tell us about that situation, please?
Yeah, so basically me and one other member, the actual body person for our protectee, were there on the outside of the Capitol, standing alone, you know, kind of observing everything, you know, and we were on the non-violent side, the non-staged violent side. And the reason why I say that is because as I explained to my fellow inmates what actually happened that day, because, you know, like most Americans, they just watch the news and they believe what they say, and they don't even really pay attention, and they think, oh, yeah, there was a riot there. Yeah, I said, well, here, let me show you a picture of the Capitol. All right, let me show you a picture of all the video that you see. Is this little tiny area right here? Well, see, there's a massive building there, and everywhere else on that massive 4-acre grounds that makes up the U.S. Capitol was pretty much peaceful. People meandering around like a county fair, talking to law enforcement, you know, no trouble, people standing on the stairs, singing, chanting, and everything like that. So that's where me and the other individual, that's where we were. We were meandering around, making sure that there weren't any problems, because, again, that was the purpose of us being there, is to make sure that if any troublemakers or rabble-rousers tried to hurt the people there, that we would step in and stand in the gap. Right. It wasn't until much later, probably around 4:00, 4:15, we finally received a call and said, hey, there's people injured on the back side here. So we started to maneuver along to that back side. And as soon as we broke the corner on the side where everybody has seen all the footage of all the violence and the clashing with the police, I mean, we immediately got, you know, whiffs of tear gas, you know, heard, you know, flashbangs, everything. And so as I'm moving up towards the crowd, near the front of the riot, the advancing riot line, we noticed this woman laying in literally the corner. So you've got kind of like a 2 or 3 foot granite wall. If you're familiar with the way the Capitol is designed, it kind of has like a porch type wall. Well, she was basically pinned up against that wall, huddled down on the ground in pretty much a fetal position, crying and screaming. And so as I look down, the riot line is advancing on her. So there's actual video of it, and you can see that I'm basically holding the riot line back and saying, hey, there's a woman down here, which they were just going to trample right over, you know. So I'm able to get them to stop, and then we help her up and escort her out. But I mean, that really was, once we got her out of the way, I turned around and that's what it was. It was Americans being hit with batons, being shot. I was shot in the neck. I was sprayed with chemicals. They were flashbanging us, and these are totally unprotected American citizens. They're in regular clothes with hats or no hats, with maybe a flag or two. Now, I was in full body armor because we were dressed to provide security. And so I was able to get up there and do the best that I could to prevent some of this violence on behalf of the Capitol Police. And, that night when I got back to my RV, my forearm was literally swole up because these guys were literally swinging at unarmed, unprotected heads of American citizens with batons. Now, that is attempted murder because these batons are designed to crush skulls. And so, and a lot of this video is coming out. If you look at the case of Victoria White, who I think Joseph McBride is her attorney, they're getting this footage released, and the narrative story is, the other lady, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but, she died of an overdose from Adderall. But yet now video has come out showing that she was beaten to death by Capitol Police. And Victoria White was right in that exact same area where she was also beaten by Capitol Police. I'm now in here in the Pinellas County Jail with a 28-year-old combat veteran from the Air Force who just wrote an open letter describing what he saw that day and how Americans were beaten by police, to the point where there's blood everywhere, some of them unconscious. And this is why the video from that day is deemed by the federal government as highly sensitive. It has nothing to do with national security. It has nothing to do with, the Capitol building is so secret we can't even allow you to see the footage or anything. No, it's because all the video that they have is exculpatory to the 700-plus people that have been arrested as domestic terrorists. And that's really the point that I'm in, the point of why I'm in here, because I don't have to be here. There's legal avenues where I could very easily, be out of here. I'm trying to force this to trial. I could take a plea deal. They would be happy to get me to sign a non-disclosure agreement and this go away on time served and a couple misdemeanors. But I have told them under no circumstances will I accept a plea deal, because I'm going to force them to go to trial, and I'm going to force the federal government to adhere to the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution that gives every American the right to a public trial in front of a jury of their peers, to be able to face their accusers, and to be able to gather compulsory witnesses in their defense. And that's exactly what my case is all about.
Jeremy, thank you so much, for standing up, which I know that you always have done. We've had many conversations. I keep you in my prayers every day. Man, I love you, and thank you, for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing the truth, because we're really understanding now what's really going on versus what they're trying to push in the media. And it's really sad what they're doing to people like you, veterans, and like you said, the beating of Americans. It's just unconscionable to me. And also, I want to, mention, my heart goes out to Alicia Babbitt, who lost her life being shot by the security guy for Vice President Pence. She was unarmed and she was shot. And
Absolutely.
He wasn't charged. He got away. They didn't want to release his picture, but since we were able to get his picture, we blasted all over the place, But it's sad where our country has come to now, where the country is arresting American patriots.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a totalitarian state, a police state, and the bad thing for them is that the surveillance network and grid of everyone having a tracking device in their hand is backfiring on them, because everyone does have video of that day. I mean, there were at least a few 100,000 people on the Capitol ground that day. There were at least 1.5 million, 2 million people at the rally that day. And you can only lie so much when everybody has a camera and everybody has a footage. And what they attempted to do early on was frighten everybody into staying quiet. That's exactly why all these arrests have like 20, 30, 40 federal agents with cars around every single corner, helicopters and everything, because they wanted to scare the American people into just staying quiet. Don't show the footage that you have, because if you do, you'll be a terrorist, and then we'll come get you. But you know what? I think my case and many of the other cases I mean, there are a few of us that are fighting these guys, and as we do fight them, exposures are made, and it makes people realize, wait, what is going on here? For example, on January 6th, we had a rally outside of the jail here on my behalf. A couple hundred people were present, and an Antifa punk showed up with explosive devices to bomb my rally. So the sheriff's department, of course, because they're all there surveilling me, apparently, even though I'm in jail, but they're surveilling my crowd. They've got undercover officers, as admitted by the Pinellas County Sheriff in a press conference that he had the next day. They arrest this kid. So they arrest this kid. He's got an explosive device, which was identified as such by the Hillsborough County Bomb Squad. And so the sheriff has a big press conference the next day, which anybody, if you go to JeremyBrownDefense.com, I believe that they have a link up to Sheriff Gualtieri's press conference. And he literally has the nerve to claim, well, they didn't know whether or not that guy was a supporter of mine or if he was against. They just didn't have enough information. I mean, he had Antifa stickers all over his helmet and Antifa symbols all over his little planning notes that he had. But, yeah, they just couldn't tell whether the 22-year-old Garrett Smith was on Jeremy Brown, the 20-year retired Army Green Beret side, or if he was against it. They couldn't put that investigation portion of it together. But yet this kid, who was literally arrested in the act of attempting to bomb law enforcement, women, children on law enforcement property, was released on his own recognizance. And while he's released, I sit in here because I had a sign on my door that I wrote by hand that wasn't even part of their case until they realized that they didn't have anything else to hold me on. And they got a judge that is a very sensitive guy, apparently, because he really feels he blatantly feels that handwritten sign was a dangerous threat to the entire world, and that's why I need to be held in maximum security. But this is the juxtaposition. I mean, if you are an American citizen who shows up to a First Amendment protected rally to speak your mind, you're a terrorist. But if you're a terrorist that shows up to bomb people at First Amendment protected rallies, well, then you deserve to be released on your own recognizance, because certainly you didn't really mean it. Now they're trying to claim that, the explosives that they recovered in his backpack and that the grenades and everything they found at his house that they reported in the media, actually they were just fireworks. And so that's the reason why they released him. It's completely ridiculous. And so as Americans see and learn what is going on, more and more are standing up. But I implore you all to stand up quicker, okay? Because this is not just another episode of your favorite political talk show. This is not just something that you read in a newspaper. This is coming to your doorstep. It's coming to a neighbor's house near you. And if you don't stand up and say, look, we're not a country of secret police. We're not a country of secret evidence. We're not a country of star chambers. We're a country of protected rights where citizens should be protected from their government, then it's only going to get worse. And my case is a prime example. I mean, the reason I have 32 pages of handwritten notes is because on almost every single report, there's a fact here that's wrong, there's a fact there that's wrong. I mean, literally, investigator notes transcribed during the actual interview, once they're put onto a 302 form, are totally different statements. I mean, and of course we saw this during the Russian hoax, right? Altered 302s, altered emails, tampered evidence. You know, the government has a legal obligation to clear you if they know of exculpatory evidence, and yet they've provided me with this exculpatory evidence, and yet there's no noise of the government saying, you know what, we've made a mistake here. For example, the DNA reports from these so-called grenades that they recovered from my RV oddly have a bunch of DNA on it, but none of it's mine, none of it's my dog's, and none of it's my carpet's. And that's in a report that they gave to me to read, and yet they're not saying, you know, maybe these aren't Mr. Brown's grenades. Let's all just go our separate ways and pretend that we never tried to set him up.
That's, they set up the wrong guy.
Well, don't say that, Chauncey, because then it'll charge you with making threats against the government.
Listen, you know me. Listen, you know me. I love the FBI. I love the government.
You are their biggest fan. Every time I see Chauncey, he's got a big I heart the FBI T-shirt on.
That's it. I'm pro government.
But let me tell you this. At one point during one of my multiple attempts to get my Eighth Amendment a bond, which if you're not familiar with the Bill of Rights, you should definitely read them now because you're going to need them soon. But the Eighth Amendment says that the government cannot grant excessive bond. Well, no bond is excessive. And so, but during one of those hearings, my attorney on the phone call with the prosecuting attorney literally posed a question to her and said, do you really think Mr. Brown doesn't deserve bond? I mean, come on, this guy has no criminal history? And she's like, absolutely, he does not. And he's like, what possible reasoning do you think that he doesn't deserve bond? And he said that her direct quote, and he was dead serious because this disturbed even him. He said that he said to her, she said to him over the phone, Mr. Brown disrespects the government.
You can't make this stuff up.
When you disrespect the government, you deserve to be locked away.
You have 1 minute remaining.
When you disrespect the government, American people, you deserve to be locked away indefinitely, pre-trial, so that you cannot build your defense, so that you cannot see the evidence against you, because it is blasphemy to disrespect the government. How dare me?
You have about 40 seconds left, Jeremy. If you'd like to share some more, please do, and then I'll close out after you're done.
Well, Chauncey, my message to the American people is it's not enough to read it in the paper. It's not enough to watch it on the TV. It's time to get out there, let your voices be heard, find your God-given talent, the one thing that you love to do, that you're good at, and apply it to this fight, because it is a fight, and if you don't get involved now, it's going to be much, much worse later.
Jeremy, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show.
Thank you for using Global Tellink.
Okay, everyone, that was Jeremy Brown at Pinellas County. We heard the truth, exactly what's going on. He's not being held as a result of what happened on January 6th. Wow. This is what our American government is doing to patriots, citizens. The most ironic thing is that our government wants to impose its will upon American citizens, yet give free will to illegal aliens. They want to let them vote. They want to give them Medicare. They want to give them freebies. Give them a driver's license. People, there's something wrong here in our country today. When you can come across this border illegally and get everything, yet if you're a patriot, you're an American citizen, and if you stand up for what is right, you are a threat to the government. People, just because, we may have a good job, a nice car, and we live in a cushy neighborhood, it doesn't mean that we arrive. Someone out there is suffering. Someone out there is paying the price for you to live the way you do. So Jeremy's message about all of us standing up and fighting back is critical. We all have a role to play in saving our country. We have no business complaining if we're not in the game fighting to save our country. We should all be standing up for what is right and not as what's popular. I want to thank all of my listeners for tuning in tonight. This was a very informative podcast, very heartfelt, and very real. Wednesday, myself and my co-host Jarrett Tomasi will be here. I'm sure he's tuning in now in queue. And we're going to talk about this interview, and we're going to talk about future interviews. And these are the type of things that Jarrett and I, who is a veteran, this is what we want to do. We want to bring reality to the American people. This is not about politics. This is not about trying to make money. This is about speaking truth to power. This is about sidestepping the mainstream media and giving the people the truth. The truth hurts. The truth is real. It's not fluff talk. People are being hurt when they stand up for the truth. Jeremy's been in jail for 130 days. Nothing to do with January 6th, but for standing up for what is right, people. And we know throughout history, anybody that stands up for what's right has been jailed or killed. Martin Luther King, everyone. We can look at John F. Kennedy. But what is the purpose for living if you do not stand up for what is right and wrong? I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope everybody has a safe and blessed evening. And please tune in on Wednesday at 9 o'clock for American First Patriot Podcast with Jarrett and myself, Chauncey Brown. You can find us all the time on LinkedIn, chopping it up. But we hope that you will start joining us here every Wednesday for an hour show from 8 to 9. We're going to have people call in. You want to share your experiences with us. We're here to listen. We're here to be a voice for all of the American people. And I want to thank my friend and co-host Jarrett for wanting to embark upon this mission with me. I want to thank him for his service to this country as being a veteran. I want to thank him again for wanting to stand up and join the fight with me in saving our nation. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm Chauncey Brown. We'll see you on Wednesday. Thank you very much. Have a good night. And remember, keep the faith. Good night now.